Good morning. We are at Grange OHV. It's a small OHV park, but it's close to home and it's a perfect place to test out new equipment like these shock therapy springs. So we're going to go over my first impressions and my reaction after riding them for the first time. But before we do that, we're going to have to travel back in time. We're coming to you live from the past, and I'm just kidding. This is too much? Okay, that's too much. We're talking about ride height, and we're going to go over my first impressions after installing the shock therapy springs. I don't have a spring compression tool, so I had Cal Custom put them on for me, or Cal Custom trailers. And it's not just throw the springs on and you're good to go. You need to check your ride height, and there's a right and a wrong way to do it. And you're also going to have to adjust it after the first 100 to 200 miles. It's going to sag a little bit, and then shock therapy guarantees that it won't sag after that. So it's not just throw them on and hit the road. You need to check it with all the riders that you filled out that form that you did for shock therapy about, whether or not you have tree kickers, if you have aftermarket cages or spare tires and all that stuff. So after learning that, I got a proper ride height. You got to get all of your passengers in your side-by-side that would normally be in there about 80% of the time. And you coast back and forth, drive forward, drive backward, don't slam on the brakes. And then once the suspension settles, you can take your measurements from there. If you have a live valve side-by-side, you need to keep the engine running. So we're going to go over where to take your measurements and how you would actually adjust your ride height. Okay, so we are on the passenger side. The location is the same on both sides, driver side and passenger side. This one just has the most light at the moment. So you want to measure from the floor up on the lower control arm where the bushing mount is, or little bracket that it's on. So we're about 15 1/4 with nobody in it. Again, you're supposed to take your measurements after you settle your suspension and you have your passengers inside. I'm just showing you the locations. And in the rear, you want to measure from the floor to pretty much the lowest part on your frame right there. So according to shock therapy, for every inch you gain in tire height, you basically add a 1/2 inch of ride height. So I have M1 Evils. They are a 30 by 10 by 15 tire. So I'm going to basically add an inch of ride height. So for that kind of setup, shock therapy recommends, I think, to be at 14 inches in the front. The Honda's kind of lean on the engine side, so driver side kind of leans a little bit. So I'm honestly sitting at about 14 on the driver side and about 14 1/2 on the passenger side. Not a big deal. It kind of wants to naturally sag that way anyways. I'm probably going to adjust it to try to make it more level and compensate for the driver's side. In the back, I think I want to be at about a 13 1/2, so I gotta raise it up. The way you adjust your ride height is you want to jack it up so where the tires are off the ground, and right here on the preload collar, you would back the top one off. It's like a locking nut, and then you adjust the one on the bottom. So obviously you compress it, you gain ride height. So a soft punch would be best, and a hammer. Some of them have little cool keys, you can use to turn these. But then you just adjust it from there. Pick a good spot to measure from. I usually just pick, wherever you do it, just make sure you just measure from the same spot. So I usually pick this little plate up here where the threading stops, and then I just went down to the second adjustment collar. And then just took my measurement from there and just, spinned it until I got to where I wanted. Okay, so the key takeaways. Remember to check your ride height in the locations I mentioned, and don't forget to have your passengers inside when you take the measurement. Allow your suspension to settle by driving back and forth and then coming to a stop a few times before you take your measurements. Remember that the ratio is different in the back than it is in the front. And it's not very difficult, guys. If I can do it, you could do it. Back to you, future me. What'd you girls think? Okay, just got back from the ride, and we're gonna go over my first impressions. So here are the stock springs, not that that's relevant in any way. So initially, I think I had my expectations set really, really high, but that's not to diminish the fact that these things are awesome. It was pretty rough in some spots. I did kind of feel like there was a little bit more body roll when I was just kind of driving around and stuff like that. I don't know if that's just me or not, or if it's still kind of settling in. You also have to check your ride height after, I think, 200 miles or something like that. But overall, I am very, very happy with it. We had a blast. Those are better than those.